program or the doctoral program. The structure of a thesis varies depending on your field, but it is typically divided into 4 to 5 chapters, including an introduction and conclusion chapter. So basically, you have to first understand what research is. Research is investigating or re-investigating the facts which are available or which are new. You can go for discoveries or innovations, but it should ultimately lead to some conclusion. At the same time, when we say research, it is a kind of search that you begin again with a whole purpose of some contribution. So there should happen some contribution. Many times what happens, people end up on writing a research thesis or dissertation on such kind of topics which are not practically contributing into something. Then that does not become research. If you are writing or compiling a data of something that is already available, it then becomes only compilation and not a research. Research, the goal, ultimate research, or the ultimate goal of research is to contribute something in the existing stream of knowledge through your discoveries or innovation. So exploration is at the base of research. Curiosity gives us investigation, exploration, and exploration helps you out to collect data, to reach to various goalposts, and then ultimately you have to analyze, interpret the science, the data that you receive in your journey, the milestone of your research, and then interpret it ultimately towards one concrete conclusion. So this is what ultimately is research. Research varies according to the stream, the field of your study. So it is different in humanities and different in sciences or social sciences, but there are some parallel aspects which majorly we will be focusing today. So in humanities, it is usually in a form of a long essay, developing an overall sense of argument revolving around the central idea of the thesis, whatever is your central theme. The chapters are organized around diverse case studies or themes. Whereas in empirical research, which usually is done in social sciences or sciences basically, the thesis is going to feature all the components that we are about to discuss below. We are going to discuss in further slides. In cases, they are dealt in a separate chapter, while in others, we are required to combine them as per our requirements. For example, in specific type of qualitative social sciences, the discussion as well as the result are interwoven together than being dealt separately. Usually, it depends on what kind of thesis you are writing. I mean, uh, if you are in a science stream, your methods of study, your objectives varies than the one in humanities. Humanities, it is more about library research. There are some field works, but laboratory researches are rare, such as in the subjects like psychology or something. But in sciences, it can be laboratory research, library work, field work, quantitative, qualitative analysis, which is again common in both. So you have to identify first which area stream in which you are doing research, and according to that, you have to adopt your research techniques. These are certain basic. I'm just giving a core glance of various research methodologies. We will discuss it in detail.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yes.
can you present the slides in slideshow mode, ma'am?
It will be difficult for me to then move, I guess. Is it visible?
It is. Yes, ma'am. It is. No, ma'am. It is not still in slideshow mode, ma'am.
Were you not able to see it when I was changing the slides? Like this? Okay, I'll run it into a slideshow in a while. Let me finish with this particular slide first.
Yes, ma'am. No issues, ma'am. No
Okay.
issues, ma'am.
So these are certain um, research methodologies that I have compiled here for your better understanding. So first comes is theoretical research. So basically, theoretical research is used when the researcher wants to gather more information about a particular topic without considering its practical work. For example, for a social research was conducted to understand the economical mentality of middle class citizens. In this particular research, you are focusing on certain topic, not taking various classes in general. Whereas applied research, so your purpose also influences your research methodology. Please remember this. Applied research works to find a solution to a scientific problem. So you have a knowledge, you have a theory, and you apply it in practical to identify. Okay, that basically happens in STEAM. Okay, science, technology. I'll give you one example of the same. So, for example, a business can be analyzed from the customer's purchasing strategy. Okay, and accordingly you can plan marketing. So, whatever you have gained through your understanding of business strategies, through your understanding of study of the data of mentality of customers, you can plan your marketing strategies accordingly. For example, many times we came across uh, prices on the price tags of the various equipments, utensils or clothes. Okay, it's usually 199. Now 199 is all are just very close to 200 than 200. But that one figure and three digits brings your mentality back to 100 more. So these are certain techniques people do use through this applied research. Second type of research methodology depends on the depth of scope. For example, exploratory research, descriptive research, and explanatory research. Exploratory, if you want to explore more in the topic which already has been, on which there had been some studies happened already. Descriptive, in order to describe certain factor in detail, certain detail. Then descriptive research methodology you can use. For example, investigating the standard of living in the rural and urban areas. Thereafter, explanatory research example can be understanding the toddler's behavior while watching cartoons. So it is more on explanatory to explain how certain factors influences behavior of children. Another type of methodology is data based. Okay, so what kind of data you have used? This is something that most of you are going to face uh, this research methodology. Most of you are going to imbibe in your works. And quantitative, let's make it very simple. Qualitative deals more with data, words, okay, or data collected in paragraphs. It's more, whereas quantitative deals more with numbers, graphs, stats, mathematics, computational tools, and so on. So this is a basic difference between qualitative and quantitative. Thereafter is manipulation of variables, experimental research and non-experimental research. So under experimental research, experiment to test a new drug in the market on patient. Okay, or whatever before any medication or medical drug uh, launching into market, before that it is tested on some animals like rats, rabbits, if they are human friendly, if they are really working on or not going to cause any side effect on human body. So this is what is basically comes under experimental research. There is another type based on the manipulation of variables, and that is non-experimental research. Now, the example of this can be a study on the effect of a certain education program on a batch of students. So for this, you don't need laboratories to experiment. Okay. Thereafter, quasi-experimental. This is also another type included in it. Study which can be conducted to know the effect of eating more cheese uh, on the health. So that can be one quasi-experimental research. So this is particularly similar to experimental research itself, but the only difference is the sample for the experiment is not selected randomly, which happens in experimental. So for quasi-experimental, it is a very narrow down study which focuses on certain kind of population, let's say. Okay, the sample should be tested and then assigned to the treatment of the control group. So this is what is quasi-experimental. Now, next type is based on interference. Now, on interference, first comes is deductive investigation. It focuses on explaining reality with the help of general laws referring to certain conclusions. Those conclusions are part of research problems and are said to be true in the deductive investigation. Okay, uh, which turns out to be applied in the right way. Whereas inductive investigation, it is also an observational study that focuses on achieving generalized results. It collects the data from which new theories can be generated. That's a difference. Then hypothetical deductive investigation. This particular first formulates the hypothesis based on your observations, then uses deductive induction to conduct the study, which will in return reject or accept your hypothesis. So hypothetic deduction basically, you first build hypothesis. Okay. You have certain conclusions at your mind, which are possible conclusions of your study. You know what you are going to study, how will you conduct your study, you have a clarity of it. You are clear about the sample size, okay, and sample selection. And then you imagine certain kind of conclusions, those may be possible in your study, by your study. Okay, so you conclude it, build a hypothesis, and then you move on for the experimentation, investigation, and applying your research. You conduct your whole research. And at the end, when you actually lead to the conclusion, you can cross check at that time to your hypothesis. Then your hypothesis can be true or it can be null or void. It can be rejected. Now, there are certain studies such as geographies, which are based on the time of study, even historical study. Okay, so one of the type of research methodology can be longitudinal study. It is also known as diachronic research. So it observes one event or one particular individual or group from different times. For example, human evolution, how human being was after, before, or let's say uh, the behavior patterns or survival instincts or survival measures among the indigenous people on earth from various parts of the continents, various continents. Okay, so the, or for example, a study of health of a patient under treatment over several weeks, that comes under longitudinal study. So it is actually taking parameters, observations happening and changes happening in the body of the patient for conduction of the inducing the medicines. Then after inducing the medicines, after several days of inducing the medicine, second dose, third dose, and so on. So it has a proper set of timings. This cross-sectional study. So also known as synchronous research. It focuses basically on the observing events, individual groups, subjects over time. Okay. Longitudinal subjects groups from various spans of time, and this is from over time. Another is based on information sources. Now, there are two basically, primary research and secondary research. So primary research is the research that is done from scratch. Researchers themselves gather the data, then they specify it, connect it to their study, and then they analyze it, and then set it how it relates to their first-hand information. Secondary research is conducted on someone else's work. Okay, so primary research, you start from scratch. It's your own. For example, it happens in design. So you conduct some experiments, study some particular product, and then you suggest some design on your own. For example, bullet trains, when invented for the first time, were not capable to go through the tunnel with a great speed. It was very difficult because the shape of the bullet train was oval then. But later on, after the observations of natural phenomena, especially of kingfisher, how kingfisher dives into the water with the great speed and comes out of the water without and with ease, catching its prey. That the trigger to the designers, and they design the bullet train in a different way, and the face of the bullet train, the shape of the bullet train is was made in a different way than the regular trains. That helped the bullet train to fight against the force of the wind, and by clearing the wind out, it can still go with the speed and pass through the terrain with the ease. So this is what is your basic research, primary research. It's done by you. Secondary research is somebody else has already worked on it. So there are theories available, research is available, papers available, interviews, documentaries, or certain kind of information available, or let's say thesis is written, or some theory is written from your study. You can challenge the old studies. I mean, when you are studying in your whatever respective fields, you might be coming across the same thing. There was a study, okay, theory already built before, but some scientist, somebody, according to the change time, later on challenged the old beliefs and concluded a new theory in a new way. So that is what actually is a secondary research. So you do a research based on somebody else's already conducted research itself. So these are basic research methodologies. I hope you have understood. Now let's focus on writing research. That is the second part of our this talk. So this is a common structure of any kind of research. I'm just starting a slideshow. Let me know if this is changing. Can you see the change slide, ma'am?
It is still not in slideshow, madam. No issues, ma'am. You can continue, ma'am.
Can you see this slide of structure?
Yes, ma'am. We can see, ma'am. We can see, ma'am.
Okay. So this is a common structure that is commonly followed even sciences, social science, even in humanities also. So first comes introduction of your topic, then goes literature review, then explaining your research methodologies, an overview of your research, a discussion of your result and their implications, and conclusion of your study. So till the result section, whatever you do is very objective. Where comes your subjectivity? Where comes your turn to give your opinion, to impart your own perspectives? That is in the fifth column, that is discussion. There is your original work, which is compiled, and then that can be considered as your own contribution. They can opine, give arguments, give your perspectives. You can challenge theories, you can prove how theories were wrong. If you have conducted primary research, then you can talk about how your research is more effective. In conclusion, you have to relate your research to the current times, how your research is very useful in the current scenario, especially to the upcoming scholars, further researchers and academia in general. So these are certain steps we have to follow when we formulate a research. We conduct research and we compile thesis. So we have to do is choose your research topic. Now, choosing a research topic is not that easy. It takes time to finalize a broader area of your study first. Understand the broader area of your study. Then you have to narrow it down and focus on certain aspect of that area. In a while, in a thesis, you cannot touch all the aspects. You have to narrow it down to one particular aspect. And then that aspect will be your primary source of your study. That has to reflect in your title too. So it is important to the wider academic community. The topic that you have chosen should be of some use to the wider academic community. It should not be limited only to certain group or certain sect. It should be useful in general, largely helpful for large number of people. Opportunity to showcase your thoughts and ideas. Your research topic should be such which should be an opportunity to showcase your, it is a platform where you can give your opinions, your observations, whatever you have found, if you have ever done any research beforehand also. So this is an opportunity where you can share your thoughts or ideas. You can challenge the previous people or you can support them also. It should be achievable with time frame. So whenever, in many cases, what happens, many people take admissions with all their enthusiasm, but very few of them can complete thesis or PhDs. Why that happen? Because many of the people go for very over ambitious topic, and that over ambitious topic does not get concluded within the stipulated frame given by studies. So whatever is the stipulated time frame had been allotted to you, understand, think and rethink on one important factor, that can I conduct my analysis and conclude and publish or submit my research within this time frame. Ask this question. If you say yes, only then go ahead. If you think that within 5 years, within 4 years is unachievable, then please don't go for it. You have to narrow that topic down again. You have to understand why is it important to study on this particular topic. So whenever you will choose your topic, ask these questions to yourself. How your topic is going to benefit to a larger number of people. Will it be beneficial? How will it be beneficial? And why do you think a study has to be conducted in the area that you have chosen? For example, there are some areas on which there are less studies happened, less touch aspects, and you might be the one of the few who are conducting studies on the same, or there might be several studies have happened, but all the studies would have ended. And now you want to do an attempt. What happened to Thomas Alva Edison? He conducted 99 failure attempts, researches. And based on that, he could succeed for the 100th time, right? So it might be the same for you also. So you have to prove through your writing also, convince through your writing also, that why it is important or it was important to conduct study in the particular chosen area. You should first get convinced, only convince the other people. Second step, once your topic is finalized, once it's narrowed down, once it is achievable in the given time frame, second thing you have to do is examine what is expected. Please learn about the ethics, protocols, module handbooks, and referring style guides standard given by the doctoral studies. Later on, you have to understand how the thesis has to be structured. What should come at the beginning? How should you begin with it? What are the essential documents you can attach to it? How will you conduct your research? How will you represent your research on the piece of paper on various pages of your thesis? What will be the flow? What will be the logical sequence to it? And then how will you conclude? So this is how you have to first have a brain map of the structure of the thesis. What types of source materials are used? This is something also to consider and mention in your thesis. That comes under methodology. What are the methodologies you have used? Then what was your sample size? What was your sample target? What was your sample selection basically? All these questions should be answered through your research. What forms of analysis are perceived as appropriate? Which are the forms you have used for the analysis of research data that you have collected, and those are leading or helping you out to lead to the conclusions. Third step, have a clear goal and structure. Write a proposal first. Outline it with very careful approach. So outlining proposal is very important before you begin writing something in your thesis. Once your proposal is ready, that is practically a draft, which is helping you out to at least guess what will be your itinerary, what would be your direction in which you can channelize your research towards, and what should be your ultimate goal and ultimate conclusion. So that is why drafting research proposal is very important. Reading and researching are essential qualities of a good research. Though you are writing an article or writing a thesis, reading and researching a lot is very important. Unless and until you read a lot, you give some base, theoretical base to your study cannot be concrete. You also have to study through others' researches, those have been conducted already. Articles available, books available, thesis is available, scholarly arguments, lectures available. Scrutinize those, analyze those from critical point of view. You may find some flaws, you may find some supporting evidences, you may find some motivating factor, you may find some parallel lines in the studies of others and the study that you are conducting or you want to conduct. Okay, understand all these things and build parallel lines between all the points. Structuring and restructuring is very important. Once you start writing, it will not happen that in one go you are going to finish with your writing. It will take time. Writing research it's a lengthy task. It does not happen overnight. It takes months, it takes years. It needs a lot of patience. So once you structure your research, do not let it be the final structure. You can always revise the structure of your thesis. Do not stick to whatever you have written. Keep on reading, keep on referring some good style sheets, good research books, which will give you idea about what should be the standard formatting, what should be the standard structuring in the discipline that you have chosen to write. Drafting and proofreading is very important. Whatever you have drafted, get it proofread. Proofread by yourself, proofread by expert from your field. Do not rely on just first draft. There will happen draftings. You will have a lot of drafts, which are rough drafts, and there will be final draft, which will be very different than your first draft itself. That is a very usual and normal phenomena in the research writing. So don't worry about that. But do not finalize it only based on your own knowledge. Make sure that you get it proofread only by the expert from your field. First thing, if you are writing it in English, get it proof checked by someone who is really good in English. Secondly, get it proof checked by the one who has a fair knowledge from your field. So that person may give you some contextual improvements, improvements. If you are writing in some other tongue, find expert from that tongue and get a grammar check. First step is write as you go. Please do not wait for ideas to overflow. Whenever you are getting idea, keep on writing. Keep on writing. Do not wait for sequencing it. Whatever you are feeling, write it out. At the same time, timing, you keep on writing. You do not bother about structuring it in the first level itself. For example, many times it happens that you end up writing your whole research, that is whole thesis, and then you write abstract, which is practically is the page which comes in the initial pages of the thesis. Though it comes in the initial pages of the thesis, it can be ideally written at the end of your thesis. Aim for a target. Whenever you start writing, always put some suitable targets, that I'll dedicate at least 1 hour every day or several hours in a week, and start following those targets. If in case you cannot go for it, you can always motivate yourself to compensate those hours in the free time. Check that you have addressed everything. So whenever you are writing out drafting for the first time, let you have a track of those drafts. So you can cross check with your final copy if you are missing something or not. Frequent backup and research notes are very important. If you're writing on digital platform, keep on option available where you can restore the previous copy. Yet, for safety, you can always keep on downloading whatever you have written or keep on making copy of it. At the same time, keep on writing. Whenever you are reading the article, just do not just read it as it is. Keep on writing short notes on it. Those short notes somewhere you can incorporate in your research. At the same time, when you will write your bibliography, that time also, or referencing citations, it will be useful. Second important thing, when you are writing, start compiling your bibliography from day one itself. Because many times what happens, bibliography is the last page, right? Bibliography is the last page of your thesis. But bibliography should not shape at the end of the research or end of the thesis. It is a constant process. Whenever you are coming across any article, any book, or any lecture, start writing down the details of those in the bibliography. So you should always make a separate page of bibliography in a separate folder itself, which later on you can copy and paste to your main thesis. So in this way, you can, if you want, you can make separate pages for different chapters, 5 chapter, 5 pages, bibliography separate, abbreviation separate, citation separate. So you can work parallelly on certain pages. For example, reading article, writing literature review at the same time, or writing definition, citing some name. At the same time, I'm giving referencing, I'm writing footnotes, I'm giving citations, I'm writing bibliography also. So it should go hand in hand, because later on it may happen that you may forget some reference, and that will be caught under plagiarism. And then your plagiarism will go very high, which will make it for you impossible to submit your research. So if you give a foolproof bibliography, your plagiarism report will often, plagiarism report often comes on very low scale. So it is a very good thing, good sign for your it is also a sign of a good research. Make sure that you keep frequent backups. Always keep track of what you are writing. For that, consistency is the only key. If you keep a lot of gap writing now and again, coming back after 6 months, it will just end up making you forget about what you have written previously, or whatever is your thought process. Because our brain processes very with a great speed, supersonic speed, and your thoughts are not constant. Thoughts are not constant phenomena. It keeps on changing. It's very dynamic. So whatever you are thinking today may not be the same that you may remember or you may think after 6 months. So keep the consistency so your research will always remain fresh. You can always keep on updating it unless and until you finally print it, right? So that revision always has a chance. Only thing is maintain consistency. Do not wait for anything. Do not keep larger gaps in your research. Once you start writing, just have achievable targets. Do not overburden yourself. Maintain the speed and maintain the consistency. It will help you out to do and conduct a good research. Constantly keep on asking question to yourself. Next step. Maintain a questioning and
Ma'am,
critical mindset. Yes.
ma'am, the slides are not changed, ma'am. You can present it normally, ma'am.
What you are
Still,
seeing right now?
yes, ma'am. Now we are able to see, ma'am.
Okay. Fine. Fair enough. So this is a fifth step that always have a questioning mindset. Okay. Because questioning mindset, critical mindset keeps you, gives you curiosity. At the same time, it also help you to come back at the right track. If you are diverting, it will bring you back. At the same time, it always will make you or motivate you and lead you towards only concrete contribution. That's why this critical mindset is very important. So it is there is a very famous saying that you are your best critic. Nobody, you can lie to the whole world, but you cannot lie to yourself, right? So you should always have a critical mindset to your work. Always keep on analyzing it. Always keep a track that if your study is going in the right direction or not. So that will also help you out to keep the right track. At the same time, the questioning mindset will also give you new ideas, new perspectives, which will help you to give a concrete contribution. First thing you should ask that whenever you are reading whatever you have written, are you convinced by that? How strongly are you convinced? If you feel convinced, only then you can convince the readers, convince other researchers, scholars. If you fail to convince yourself, it means that you are lacking in your research, in your proper direction of the research. So you have to make sure that you maintain that flow. First, you should have a convincing tone throughout your research. And when can you convince? You can convince only when you can give the concrete output, an output or an argument which has a theoretical base, which has certain strong grounding. You should not make random statements. Many people have habit of making random statements, beating around the bush, adding unnecessary nonsense information. That will just kill the scarcity of the word space. No need. You always have abundant ideas by which you can always replace the repetitive works. Explain your reasoning, forming a strong argument. You can explain what you have written, what statement you have made by forming a very strong argument. You can always support your own statements by that. For that, your study has to be very intense. Your research has to be very intense. For that, you should read a lot. You should refer a lot of articles, a lot of books, lot of works. Bibliography contains plenty of references. So please mind it. And from day one itself, start compiling your bibliography on a separate sheet. Well structured, coherent, and polished thesis. Reassessing the logic of the whole piece of writer. Now you had written at the beginning, you had written your various thoughts, various chapters, various documents like bibliography, citations, or abstract, or let's say abbreviation on separate pieces of paper. Now you have compiled those together, and now your thesis is flowing from top to bottom in one sequence. Now, when your thesis is flowing in one sequence, cross-check the logic in which it is flowing. If you find any discrepancy in it, Please revise it. Please check. There should be aims and objective at the beginning. Then comes your literature review. Literature review doesn't come before the aims and objectives. Unless and until your aims and objectives are clear, how will you conduct the research further? Right? So you should think about this logical sequencing also. Give sufficient time to proofreading and checking. Do not hurry up. We usually have ample time given by the doctoral studies. Okay, let's say 3 years or 5 years, 3 years minimum, right? Or 5 years gap or 5 years span given. That is also an ample time if you plan it well. You have to, once you decide that you want to do a research, you want to write a thesis, the day you get admitted, start work. The day you finish your coursework, start writing. Before you finish your coursework, your topic should be clear in your mind. You should not wait for the coursework to end. Throughout your coursework also, you should keep on thinking, what should I write on? Which are the possible areas where I can explore and contribute? So this process should go on. If you maintain the consistency, you will not feel overburdened. This is a very huge, long document of some 100 pages, right? 250 to 300 pages. In certain cases, more than that. So it is not that easy that you can draft it within few months. This miracle doesn't happen in that way. Because collecting data itself consumes a lot of time. Then filtering data is the next step. After that, analyzing data, then assessing data. These are certain things that you have to go for. So you should give sufficient time for all these things. Ultimately, before you finally submit your research or finally print it, please proofread it several times, 2-3 times. Once by you, once by the expert from your field, once by the language in which you have written, and fourth, take one more opinion from the one peer reviewed also. So give sufficient time for the checking. Once you print it out, you cannot change it out. Otherwise, it will be a wastage of money. Main argument should always be supported by relevant citations. If you are using some definitions, make sure that you are giving citation. If you are using certain terminologies, make sure you give clear references of those. So this is something is very important. Contribution of the most influential theories and research makes your research very concrete. Unless and until there is a backup, there is a foregrounding of theories, your research is not complete. So always make sure that your research should have some base. So this is a common structure of a thesis, standard structure. So title page, acknowledgement, abstract, table of contents, figures, list of figures and tables, list of abbreviations, glossary, introduction, literature review, theoretical framework, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion, reference list, and appendices. So here also comes, after theoretical frames comes actually chapterization. So this is a standard framework. This should, if you can see on the right hand, whatever I have given is actually a sample. Okay, I think it's visible now properly. Okay, sample. This is how your front page should look like. So whatever is your title page, that also gets pasted on your front cover of your thesis. So please craft it carefully. So on the first page, there comes, these are few things. It begins with the university where you are giving. It begins with the title of your research. After title of your research comes your name, then department, institution. If you have URN number as a student, then that will come. Then comes degree program, submission date. Submission date usually is written in month and year, not the date exactly. Okay. And then you have to make the statement, a dissertation submitted for the degree of partial fulfillment of the degree of PhD, MPhil or something like that. Acknowledgement is the thanking page. It is optional, but this is a very crucial page where you can acknowledge the help of all those who have motivated you, who have helped you in conducting your study, in your research, including your guide, definitely, your family members or friends. So this is a page where you can thank your uh, supporters. Next important thing is abstract. Now, usually abstract flows into 150 words, right? But as you are writing a thesis of few hundred pages, it will flow into 1 page or 1.5 page with several paragraphs in it. What are the things you should include in your abstract? You have to state your main topic. What is your topic exactly? What is your central theme? And what is your major intention of your research, aim of your research? Then describe which methods have you used to conduct your research. Thereafter, you have to talk about main results. What are your findings or what are your observations? After that, you have to give your main arguments. And then you have to state your conclusion. So although abstract is a very short document, it's the first page of your thesis that people read, but it's very important document which gives a glimpse to the reader what your next 100 pages are talking about. So you have to make sure that you craft your abstract very carefully. Table of contents usually have list of all the things included in your thesis, including all the chapters, subheadings, their page numbers. Okay. Then comes list of figures and tables. If you are using figures and tables, give a list of it. Some people use abbreviations. Write abbreviations, give full forms. So whenever somebody is coming across some abbreviation on, let's say, page number 80, that person cannot every time find out where is the explanation given. That person will lead directly on the page of abbreviation, list of abbreviation, check out that term and understand what it is. Always sequences into alphabetical order. Same with glossary. If you are using some complicated terminologies, some different concepts, give explanation of those in an alphabetical order. In the what should you write in the introduction of the research? So in an introduction, you have to talk about your topic, what is the purpose of your study, and how your study is relevant to the current time, and how it will contribute to the upcoming time. So tell the reader what to expect in the rest of the thesis, what your thesis is going to talk about in the few leading pages. This is what you have to talk about. So an introduction should establish your research topic, necessary background information to contextualize your work, narrow down the focus and define the scope of your research. Then discuss the state of existing research on your topic. If a lot of work has happened or very less work has happened, and showing your work's relevance to a broader problem or debate. Clearly state your objectives, research questions, indicate how will you answer them. Give an overview of the structure of your thesis. So everything in the introduction should be clear, engaging, and relevant to your research. By the end, readers should understand what are you doing or what are you doing a research on, why are you doing the research, and how have you done your research. So these questions should have a clear answers. Literature review is a section where you have to compile a summary of the works which you have referred to build a background for your study. So you have to talk about the all kind of articles, books, those you have referred. When you will write it, you have to, how will you craft it? So you can give the title of the article that you have referred along with the name of the author and year of publication and in which it has been published. So this is what is literature review. Next comes this methodology. Under theoretical framework, basically we talk about methodologies, tools and techniques we use for your research. And the kind of sample you have selected, you can give information about that sample too. So under methodology, already we have discussed research methodology at the beginning itself. So this section basically talks about how have you conducted your research, allowing your reader to assess its validity. So you should generally include the overall approach and the type of research, that is qualitative, quantitative, experimental, or ethnographic, your method of collecting data. Have you collected through interviews, surveys, or archives, or reading reports? Details of where, when, with whom the research took place. Your methods of analyzing data, statistical analysis, discourse analysis, graphological analysis, etc. Tools and materials you have used, such as computer programs, lab equipment, and so on. A discussion of any obstacles you faced in conducting the research and how you overcame them. But here, obstacle means from methodological perspective. An evaluation or justification of your methods, how your methods were correct for conducting the kind of research you have chosen. So, in the methodology, your goal is to accurately report what you did while also convincing the reader that this was the best approach to answering your research questions and objectives. This is important chapter. Before this chapter practically happens analysis. So in analysis, whatever data you have collected, you have to analyze that into one or two chapters. That is third and fourth usually. Then comes results or findings. So whatever you have analyzed, you have some observations or you have some findings. Those you can compile in a separate chapter. So you can structure this section around sub-questions, hypotheses, and topics. Report only those results that are relevant to your objectives and research questions. When you are doing an analysis, there is a possibility that you may come across some irrelevant findings also, which are not exactly matching to the objectives of your own, right? In some discipline, the research section is strictly separated from the discussion, while in others, these two are combined. So whenever you take admission, please check the standard format given by your university. They do have a handbook of research. Please go through it in detail and understand the requirement of submission to that particular university. And according to that, you can sequence all these compilations. For example, qualitative method like in-depth interviews, the presentation of the data will often be woven together with discussion and analysis. While in quantitative, that is numerical data and experimental research, the research should be presented separately before you discuss their need. If you are unsure, consult your supervisor and check the handbook. Okay. So after results, after putting what are your observations, you have to give discussion. Now here comes your main role as a researcher. You have to brainstorm, you have to give logical arguments and critical perspectives. So you have to talk about scope and limitation of your study first. So what is the scope of your study and what are your limitations? As you are doing a narrow down study, so your study will be limited only to that particular focused area. Scope of your study, the target group which will be benefiting by your research. That is your scope of study. The discussion is where you explore the meaning and implications of your research in relation to your research questions. Here, you should interpret the results in detail, discussing whether they met your expectations and how will they fit with the framework that you built in earlier chapters. If any of the results were unexpected, offer explanation for why this might have happened. It is a good idea to consider alternative interpretations of your data and discuss any limitations that might have influenced the results. The discussion should other scholarly work to show how your results fit with existing knowledge. You can also make recommendation for further research and practical actions. Now, this further research, scope for further research section is very helpful for the upcoming scholars who want to research in your field of area but are not much aware about how to narrow down the research. So your this section of scope for further research will help them out a lot. Then here is the conclusion of your study after the discussion. So what are your major conclusions? What have you concluded? What are the final conclusions of your interpretations? You have to compile all those here in this section. So this section should concisely answer the main research question. So have you made with the objectives of your research? Is your hypothesis proved to be true or false? All these things you have to mention here in the section of conclusion, leaving the reader with a clear understanding of your central argument. It is a final reflection on what you did and how you did. This section is also a recommendation for research or practices, further practices. It also talks about how your findings contribute to the knowledge in the field. There should be some contribution, only then it is called research. Why your research matters, the importance of your research. What have you added to what was already known? So what was the actual contribution from your side? So all these things will be explained, answered in the section of conclusion. This is last but not the least is the referencing list. So there are citations and bibliography. There are footnotes also. So if you are not giving footnotes, then write it in references. For example, if you are using certain concepts, you have to read a lot about the various research style sheets. So you have to write one in the superscript of that word, and either in the footnote you have to write one and explain what that word means, where you have taken it from, or else you have to write it in the citation the same. Bibliography will be the complete list, okay, complete details of the document that you have referred, which will include the title, author, year of publication, place of publication, publisher, and if it is an article, then page numbers. So all these things will be compiled in the bibliography. You have to check which style sheet is suitable for you. It can be APA, Chicago, MLA, and according to that, you have to put the places in the correct order of all these things I mentioned. It is very important to follow a consistent reference type. Each style has strict and specific requirements. For example, in MLS style begins with the surname of the author, comma, followed by the name of the author or the initial letter of the author. In bracket, year of publication. If it is a book, then title in all caps. If it is an article, then title, initial letters, capital only, in single inverted comma. Then, comma, followed by the journal in which the article has been published. If it is a book, then publisher, then place of publication. So these are the styles of writing. So you have to learn those and stick to a stipulated format that has been recommended for you. Appendices. So your thesis itself should contain only essential information that directly contributes to answering your research question. Documents you have used that do not fit into the main body of your research thesis, such as interviews, forms of interviews, or if there are some photographs you have taken of the site where you went for the field work and conducted research, or survey questions, or tables with full graphs, or some policies which you have referred, or some government reports which you have referred. You can add all those things into appendices. These are certain mistakes one must avoid while writing a thesis. Your thesis's preliminary pages are missing, incomplete, or out of order. It should not be done like that. You should be careful to understand what are the needs. So along with your cover page, your first page, thereafter your page of contents, Thereafter, certificate. Okay, there is one section called certificate. So thereafter, there comes acknowledgement. Thereafter comes abbreviations, table of contents, list of abbreviation, whatever it is, and then it goes on with abstract and then further thesis. So you should maintain that order and make sure that all pages are included with proper care. Your thesis abstract should not be longer than 1 page. So it should be max 1 page. Um, so if your thesis contains multiple formatting problems, then it will be a very bad representation. Usually we do have certain standard formattings, Times New Roman, 12 font, 1.5 spacing. In certain cases, it's single spacing. Thereafter, justified format, 1.5 inches spacing from left side, top, bottom, right, 1 inches. And along with that, there are areas where you can write footnotes, what should be the size of your title, then subtitle, and so on. For that, you have to go through the handbook research guide in detail of that certain university. Um, your thesis should not contain words from proposal stage. So you have to make sure while writing your thesis, especially make sure about the tense which you are using. Because when you propose for your thesis, propose for your research, so in research proposal, you write, I will be conducting, okay, not I exactly, the research will be conducting or the researcher will be conducting research on certain area. So this is will be future tense in research proposal. But when you write in thesis, it should be past tense because you already have conducted your research, completed your study, compiled your results, done your conclusions, and then now you are manifesting it through the medium of your research thesis book. Fine. So it should go in past tense. So you have to be careful. It should not be just a copy paste of your research proposal. You should follow academic integrity. There should not be any violation, such as plagiarism, should be completely banned. You should not copy data from any source. You should not rely on somebody else to write your thesis. It should be genuine, your own work. If your thesis contains grammatical errors, jargons, unclear paragraph organization, or common writing blunders, then it will be a malfunctioning of the research. It will be a bad representation, and you cannot and you should not submit such kind of work. So you have to be careful about all these pluses and minuses of research work. Things to do and things should not be done. You should be careful about. So thank you so much. I stop here for a while and I would like to open the session for question answers.